Hello everyone, sorry for the delay. It's Matt Peacock here from Arts and Homelessness International. Welcome to everyone in the conference, in the summit in London and online. We have a big audience for this panel on funding. You're very welcome. Like most of the summit, as I explained before, all of the panels have been suggested by members of the arts and homelessness community. And as the International Network of Arts and Homelessness, we are trying to be as helpful and respond to need, to represent the sector, to support the sector, to connect the sector like this, and to do everything we can to make a case that arts is a need to have, not a nice to have in the homelessness world. So funding is really important. This panel started life as a kind of, let's gather together lots of great suggestions of how we can all fund our projects. And in most countries, funding is in a catastrophe. We have projects closing almost every week in the UK, and we have the advantage in the UK of 2,000 trusts and foundations, which many countries in our network could only dream of. So it's an incredibly challenging environment out there. So this panel is partly to, yes, chat about possible ideas of diversifying income, but it's also to be a place where we can come together to support each other through this horrible, horrible environment of funding. It's not a coincidence that our final panel is on academic research, because one of the ways that we believe this sector will, and arts in general, will show its value is through some really good research, which is getting better and better each year as we understand as a community the impact of arts interventions in the community and in life in general. So I'm going to hand over to my fellow co-director, the brilliant Samra Saeed.
Thank you, Matt. Hello, everyone. Aww. Thank you so much. And hello and welcome to our online audience and all of you here at Old Diorama Arts Centre. We're going to have a discussion and conversation on funding the current climate. And in today's session, as Matt kind of touched on, we will explore the evolving landscape of funding for social impact projects and the arts. We're going to highlight both the opportunities and challenges that some of the organisations in the panel face, but also the landscape across the globe. But firstly, I'd like to extend our warmth gratitude to our summit funders whose support has made this event for the past 3 years possible. And just to name a few, we've got the Art Council England who are online, Lenby Trust, Albert Hunt Trust, and in-kind phenomenal support from Old Diorama Arts Centre, whose we call this our new home. And you can find more information about these funders if you go to our website. But most importantly, we acknowledge that funding is particularly challenging, especially in an environment where there is no public funding and very little grant funding today. We have seen many charities and NGOs forced to close every year, but in last year alone, there's about 900 plus organisations that had to close due to financial challenges. So that is really peak. And behind every closure lies a heartbreaking story. Vulnerable people losing vital support, communities losing much loved institutions and projects, and dedicated staff losing their livelihoods. And we're not alone in this, because even at Arts and Homelessness International, we too have been working so hard to diversify our funding through individual giving with our new Friends that we scheme that we launched 2 months ago, and finding ways and artistic creative ways of actually increasing our earned income. We are running this summit on very limited and small budget and a limited capacity. There's the 3-4 of us, and very incredible volunteers and freelancers and associates who's been really supporting us. So we're not alone in this. As an organisation, are continuously facing a lot of challenges. But what does the challenges have the impact on the program? What does it have on the challenges on services and project, and what do the community say about that? But what can AHI do to help? We have offered fundraising training and will continue to do so. A lot of this we provide in our international Zoom meetings, which is the last bonus day of every month. But we also offer training and capacity support. But we also have done a solid research on the entire sector and how we can demonstrate the impact of arts and homelessness. You can check that report on our website. And our literature reviews highlighted how arts projects can build resilience, agency, skills, and well-being. So what today I encourage you to do, I encourage you to feel hopeful about what is possible. I know it's really difficult to do so, but there is a lot of hope, and we'll hear a lot of those examples from our panelists, and also be open about your funding status. I think it's really important to be honest and vulnerable about where you are at. Speak to your peers and your network, and also encourage your funders about what these challenges are, and also lean into your network. And this is the people that you have here. So please, I invite you to share some questions there, and so that we can all support each other. But without further ado, I'm really delighted and honored to chair this panel. We have Sulu Lunim from Theatre of the Oppressed online, all the way from America. We've got Bijesh Arya from Bichan in India. We're excited to have him here. And we got Americo from Hecho and Best in Argentina. But we also, sorry not to have Mark Horvath from Invisible People, United States of America, who's actually here in London, came all the way to be on this panel, but unfortunately, due to ill health, is unwell today, and he sends his apology, but I've got some remarks from him that I'll share later. But I'm delighted to have Daniel Pitt to step in. We're very grateful to you here, who's the director of Old Diorama Art Center. So what I'll do is I'll get every panelist to introduce themselves and their work, 2 to 3 minutes, and then we'll have a conversation amongst ourselves to shed light on this work. So first, if I get Sulu to invite themselves and introduce yourself and how you're doing.
Hi, hello everybody. My name is Sulu Leonim. I use they and them pronouns. And yeah, I'm calling in from Brooklyn in New York City. I work at Theatre of the Oppressed NYC. So we are an organization, we are in our 13th year of working here in New York City. And our work has focused on the tool of, hold on, Zoom is asking me which language I'm speaking, so I want to help with the translation. Focusing on using the Theatre of the Oppressed tool of forum theater in the spaces run by our community partners. And so what that means is that we have partnerships with spaces around New York City that are providing social services or shelter. And we are there for hopefully 2 cycles each year, where we show up for weekly rehearsals to do play building, and the actors who join us are members of that community, and they play games with us, start to share stories of their lived experience, select a topic that is related to a challenge they feel like they're really sharing right now and they want to share with their audience, and they build a play that shows the challenges they're experiencing and provokes the audience members to identify those problems and then get up and do improvisation with us to see what changes can be made from the point of view of the people who are actually experiencing the problem. And then we also facilitate the conversation about the bigger picture of how changes can happen. And one example of a space that I'm working in right now, because I facilitate the work. I am also currently the executive director at the organization, but one of our long-standing partnerships is with the Ali Forney Center in Manhattan. And the Ali Forney Center is an organization that provides support as well as supportive housing and emergency housing for LGBTQ youth who are experiencing homelessness in New York City. And we have been doing a project there where actually we started exploring a different Theatre of the Oppressed tool, newspaper theater, where they're looking at media narratives and the uses of media, specifically around the climate crisis and fires in the US. So I'll pause there so that we can do other introductions.
Thank you so much, Sulu. And then if I invite Bajesh, I can see him online. Bajesh from Peshan in India. How are you doing? And please introduce yourself and the work that you do.
Hi everyone, my name is Gracious Arya. My English is not good, but my team member Sarthak is here, he can translate. But, so I work with the homeless community in last 15 years in Mumbai, and organization called Pehchan. Pehchan working the core 5 issues from the homeless community: identity, shelter, livelihood, art, and different types of craft project. I'm also member from the homeless collective convener, and the homeless collective is umbrella of different charities, NGOs, lawyers, and I'm also member of the Supreme Court Shelter Monitoring Committee. And I'm happy for here that we can talk the funding issue is the today. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you, appreciate you. And I know we don't have our colleague from Argentina, so I'm going to introduce Daniel. Hello, how are you doing?
I'm good. I'm going to assume that lots of you have heard a lot about ODAC in the last few days that you've been here. So I'm director. I've been here for 3 3/4 years. And in terms of like the relationship between ODAC, our work with the homeless community, and funding, we used to host, like 2016 onwards, David Tovey's One Festival of Homeless Arts. We then, post-pandemic and in the sort of refreshed version of the organisation that we've been doing in the last few years, produced the One Roof Festival and the first recalibrated One Festival. But it's only since October last year that we've had any significant funding for this work and have been able to properly resource the work and properly allow one of our staff members, Claire Rivers, who maybe hopefully you've met over the last few days, also seen speak yesterday, to actually be in a sole role. And we're going to be also recruiting somebody with lived experience to be on the staff team full-time, not full-time, part-time, but like consistently rather than ad hoc freelance work. And so our journey is of sort of trust, and then being able to make the case for funding is still only at its early stages. But we are very thankful currently to the Linbury Trust, Tedworth Charitable Trust, the Arts Council England, and an anonymous donor for the current work that we're about to really expand on.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Appreciate that. And Sulu, if I come to you I've been an admirer of your work, of course, you know that. But what I've been following in the last couple of months has been how forefront of you guys been in sharing with the public how much you need and how much you need to raise and by when. So if you can just let us know about what the current challenges has been for your organization to secure fund, and what are some of the answers you're hearing in terms of rejection or, some of the challenges that you're facing.
Thank you. Well, part of the context is that we experienced in 2020 and 2021 a significant bump in funding. There seemed to be, through philanthropy in particular, the energy to, first of all, do emergency funding. For the first time ever, we were given money to distribute specifically as money to our communities, because the context was that everybody realized that people needed money. And I say that money to distribute as money, to distinguish it as money that we must show that we've used for our artistic programs. And one of the functions was also that changed was that some funders said, these funds are not restricted to your programs, they can be used for your general operating expenses. And then what we I think did not quite realize until 2023 was that from through 2022, really funding actually stopped moving. And we had projected that we would continue to be writing grants and perhaps continue to be funded at the level that we had been through COVID. And as I've gone back and looked, what I realized was we have some really supportive ongoing funders who had shifted to their grants being multi-year. But then there was a significant portion of one-time grants that we would get here and there. And some of those were not coming through for us. In addition, there were some funders who used that time to put their funding on pause and do strategic planning, which meant that they did not fund organizations during that time. So as I've been asking around, what's happening, I definitely heard from the funders whenever we got a message that we were not getting funded. What was pretty consistent was that they were being overwhelmed by the number of applications that were coming through, that they were receiving applications at a volume they hadn't before, and so they were just not able to fund. And then in talking more indirectly with people who work in philanthropy, I was told that I should not, and we should not take it personally, that the decrease in access to resources had nothing to do with the work that we did and had nothing to do with the quality of our grant reports, but across the board was likely due to the wealthy starting to be more conservative with how their money was being distributed and slowing down their giving into foundations, and foundations being conservative with changing how much they distribute, that everybody was basically holding tight with concerns that financially their picture would change. And that's very hard to absorb because them holding on to that money means that they still have money and they're still paying their staff. But us having, I was just kind of looking across our budgets, losing $400,000 worth of grant income between a couple years means that we had eventually to cut jobs and cut programs. And Samra, what you were saying about that means that we pay people to participate in our programs. And our programs are how we're connected to people to be able to build community and connect people to resources. So we've had to cut so many programs. Last year we lost 2 of our administrative staff, and we're on the cusp of having to lose more. I think there was a sense last year that maybe some of the foundations had completed their strategic work and were ready to go. But the presidential election seems to have a huge impact on a lot of funders, where everybody began to move into a wait-and-see pattern, even when communities told them, you waiting and seeing means that we lose resources. And then with the election, it seems that funders are continuing to wait and see and are now preserving their safety. I have had conversations where I'm learning that in philanthropy there is discussion of how to remove certain words from their websites, and even though they don't intend to change how they fund, to change the presentation of how they do their work publicly, to reduce the likelihood of them being challenged, because we now have an administration that does not want to do the diversity, equity, or inclusion work and actually wants to shut it all down.
Thank you.
So I'll pause there.
Thank you so much, Sulu. We totally relate to that. I mean, we've received at AHI a lot of rejection in our application last year, and it's really difficult not to take it personally when, like you yourself as well, we take pride in our fair pay policy. We take pride in paying our associate and freelancers, and that require money, require resources. But before I shed more point on that, I'd like to welcome who just joined us. Is they there? America, sorry, is it? Yeah. Hi, how you doing, America? Can you hear me? Hello?
I think that America is in the normal channel. He should be able to hear my translation there. But
no, he's in the room.
Is he?
Yeah, if you can speak to him to introduce himself and his work, and we would like to welcome him to this conversation.
Américo, hola, buenas tardes. ¿Podrías, por favor, presentarte?
Hola, ¿qué tal? Buenas tardes. ¿Se escucha bien? Sí.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Ok.
Américo, por favor, si podés hacer algunas pausas para yo poder traducir, porque la traducción acá no es simultánea.
Ok. Soy Américo Gatpen, pertenezco a Hecho en Buenos Aires, empresa social.
Pertenezco. Yeah, I belong to Hecho en Buenos Aires. It's a publication here in Buenos Aires.
Básicamente, nosotros producimos una revista y hacemos un acompañamiento integral.
We publish a magazine here, and we obviously work with other projects that are related to it, and we have other programs within the or apart from the publishing of our magazine.
Dentro de toda esta organización aparece arte. Este año hemos tenido bastantes logros. Estamos en el Museo de Arte Moderno nuevamente después de 2 años.
And we have also art, which is a kind of a branch of what we are doing, and we have achieved a lot. And one of the things that we are at the moment also as part of the Museum of Modern Art in Buenos Aires, and that's been a great accomplishment that we've had so far, especially in the past 2 years. Or after 2 years, we are back in the institution, in the museum.
Y con arte hemos logrado poder financiar dentro de toda la organización. Nos manejamos mucho con las donaciones de materiales y después la financiación general va directamente a la revista.
We basically work a lot with funding, and one of the things is that we also depend on donations. But Arte has given us or gives us some funding that we then use and manage for the rest of our programs in general.
Brilliant. Alex, if you can ask America about what challenges they've been facing as an organization to secure more resources to their publication.
Américo, ¿cuáles son los retos principales que Hecho en Buenos Aires y Arte ha tenido o tiene en general para obtener financiamiento?
El financiamiento, actualmente hemos logrado tener una alianza con una sociedad anónima de acá de Argentina que nos financia la producción de toda la revista.
So we've been lucky in terms of funding. We actually currently have an alliance with an institution, a limited company, if we will, that actually help us funding the production of our magazine.
También ha participado también otra fundación, Fundación Werstein, que también ha aportado para el general de la organización.
There has been another organization as well that has been helping us, providing funding to help us going with our programs.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. If I ask the same...
Muchas gracias, Américo.
Brajesh, if you can explain to us the context in India and your organization and how funding is looking. Oh, you're muted. Thank you.
Hello.
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah. So Samra, I will talk with Hindi, and my team member is translating English.
Okay.
Is okay?
Correct. Yeah. Go ahead.
या तो पहचान मुंबई जो है खास तौर से जो क्राउड फंडिंग और इसके अलावा जो है अपने कुछ क्राफ्ट प्रोजेक्ट बेच के फंड रेज वो करते हैं, हम लोग करते हैं। दूसरा, हम लोग एक माई मुंबई करके कैलेंडर है वो बना के कुछ सेल करके कुछ फंड रेज करते हैं। एंड तीसरा, कुछ सम पेंटिंग वी आर सेलिंग, उससे हम फंड रेज इकट्ठा करते हैं और सम अवेयरनेस कैंप और वहां से जनरेट करके फंड इकट्ठा करते हैं। बिफोर कोविड हमारे पास में फंड ग्रांट था। कोविड के बाद बहुत सारे जो ग्रांट है कंपनी है उन्होंने सारा फंडिंग बंद किया, उसकी वजह से हमको जो है वो एक प्रॉब्लम फेस करना पड़ा। लेकिन अभी हमारे पास में एक छोटा ग्रांट है जिससे एक छोटी टीम हम बना के टीम पहचान को जो है चला रहे हैं। सार्थक कैन ट्रांसलेट।
Hello everyone, I hope I'm audible.
We can hear you. Welcome.
Yes. So Pehchan in itself is quite a small NGO, a community-led organization, and our main form of fundraising comes from crowdfunding. For crowdfunding, we have a few sort of go-to sources. So we are involved in a lot of arts and crafts. Specifically, we have an initiative called the My Mumbai Calendar, where using the photo voice methodology, we teach the homeless communities how to take pictures, and through an open-end competition, we then eventually select down 13 pictures and make a calendar out of that. So that's one way. Secondly, we have a lot of homeless communities in Mumbai who are extremely talented in different art forms. Some of whom we are working with are extremely talented in painting and crafts. So we have doll making and painting as another source of art and crafts in which we sell those items, and all of those direct profits are given to the homeless community members themselves. Before COVID, we were in touch with a number of organizations and the government directly with a large number of grants. Especially post-COVID, the number of grants have been reduced, especially even from the number of grants given and the amount of the grant given in itself. Both of them have been reduced drastically. Currently, a large part of our working internally is from a small grant that we have, due to which we are able to support a very small team. And I think our colleagues was talking about earlier how important it is to maintain people, even if you are working together, especially for a long-term period. So it's special that the government of India has been reducing the number of grants and fundings when it comes to actually funding non-governmental organizations. So that is a unique challenge to India, and hopefully we'll talk more about how we can move to other pathways and see other forms of income and funding that we can do with the organization.
Thank you so much.
Vijay sir, if you would like to add anything.
या तो इसके अलावा भी हम लोग जो क्राफ्ट आइटम सेल होता था उसका जो हमने प्रॉफिट और वो सारी चीज़ें हमने बताया था। पिछले कुछ सालों से जब नेशनल इलेक्शन हुआ उसमें भी बहुत सारा जो CSR और वो फंडिंग जो रहा है वो भी सारा फंडिंग PM केयर फंड में गया। तो कहीं ना कहीं उसके वजह से भी जो है ग्रास रूट पे स्पेशली होमलेस के साथ में काम करने वाले NGOs को फंड रेजिंग करना जो है बहुत मुश्किल है, क्योंकि होमलेस में एक बहुत डिफिकल्ट इशू है। जब हम बात करते हैं अर्बन सिनेरियो में तो जब हम होमलेस की बात करते हैं तो लोगों को लगता है कि होमलेस माइग्रेटेड है, बाहर से आए हुए लोग, तो लोगों के उनके बारे में जो देखने का नजरिया है बहुत ही अलग होता है, जो सिविल सोसाइटी को देखने का नजरिया होता है।
So, I know we are short of time, very quickly articulate something in similarity to what Sulu also said. We also had our elections this year, and so most of the CSR and philanthropic organizations and individuals who would usually fund such grassroots projects started diverting the funds to something called the PM Fund, which is initiated by the national government at the national level. So basically a fund for the government to use for the elections. Also, another, I would say, mindset that people have, especially in the context of Mumbai and in India, is that the homeless communities are migrants. They have come to this city, this space, from somewhere else. But the reality is that the homeless communities have been in Mumbai, and many of them are 5th, 6th generations. So it's generational, it's deeply rooted, it's very layered. But that is a mindset of people that also makes them look away from funding such projects, especially to smaller organizations working on such important cause like homelessness.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. That was really insightful, and I appreciate the context in India because it's really useful for all of us to understand. Daniel, just coming to you from everything you've heard, you've seen in America how trust and foundation are re-strategizing, they're pausing, the wealthy are now withdrawing their funding, or the whole conversation around restricted and unrestricted. You've heard about the project will continue to support the people who are impacted, the community that are supporting. When it comes to what you just said earlier about the One Roof Festival has only been funded in the last, since October perhaps, and with the launch of your current new strategy with arts and homelessness as a strand, what does funding look for you, and how's that going?
Well, we're really lucky to have a core of earned income from the studio hires of this centre. We have so many studios that we can afford to give loads away for artistic activity. Well, it's all artistic activity, that's the other good thing, is it is all artistic activity that happens here, but a lot of it's more commercial. So that's been what's provided a lot of support for us. But, and that operates, well, like in a supply and demand situation, and I was quite struck listening with like how much supply and demand as a concept doesn't work in this situation. Like the need for the work that we're all doing is going up and up and up. With less money, more people will be living in poverty or be homeless.
Yeah.
And the demand is rising, but the actual income that should be therefore rising because of that, if you believe in this logical, relatively logical system, isn't working for any of us at the moment.
Yeah.
And all of those income sources are volatile, regardless of where they're coming from.
Yeah.
Compared to America, like if I was in a different organisation, I'd be thinking that we have a much more state money behind the arts here. But actually, the model that we run here was actually quite similar to an American model without state funding. And lots of trusts and foundations have also been pausing their grant giving due to the overwhelming demand, and I absolutely agree. Well, your job is to give away money. If there is demand, stopping the supply of the applications. It's frustrating, I would say.
It's very frustrating, and it's really like we were saying earlier, it's difficult not to take it personally, because you feel like you're doing everything, you're meeting the requirement, you attend all this webinar that speak to you about how this funding is going to be done and distributed, and then you submit and you get rejection and you don't even get a feedback. I think the demand for a feedback should be crucial. How do we better our application? Because a lot of resources has been put in to support burst funding. Staff's time, which could have been better spent in actually delivering a much needed resources and project. If I can come back to you, Sulu, how are you doing? We're very interested to hear about the innovative, obviously when when funding is limited, often that birth new innovative ideas of actually how to continue the work. And we were really keen and excited to watch what you were doing over the Christmas period or the festive period, the Fight Ignite. If you can just tell us more about that and what revenue has it brought in, and what has been the feedback about how receptive the community has been to it.
Yes. So what Samra is referring to is that last year, at the end of the year, we held a fundraising event, but we called it a fight raiser. So, fight. And it definitely had a boxing theme. And the spirit of it was that we knew that we were in a fight, and we are in a fight with a lot of our community and peer organizations across the arts, across social justice work, and across social services. And we chose the boxing theme to really clarify that. It in part is because boxing is something that I do. And I have a connection to a group in New York City called Trans Boxing, which is for transgender and gender expansive people to be part of that sport. And so we did a boxing demonstration as part of the event. But then we also included a Theater of the Oppressed exercise that is called boxing. And a key element of the event was that we did our work. We did a Theater of the Oppressed performance showing a scene of a nonprofit having the conversation with a city council member about, suddenly learning that $10,000 isn't being allocated to you next year. And then the conversation with the community leadership internally afterwards. And we used the exercise to highlight the tension between do we say we have less money, so we need to do less stuff? Or do we have less money, so we're going to get creative and try to keep going? Because we felt that was a very real tension. For people who feel very passionate and committed to this work, there is the sense of we can make it happen without the resources from them. And the reason why we included the scene about discussing the budget with our community leadership is because that's what we do. And we wanted to show that the impact, it's not just that the finance manager says to everybody, your project's gotta go. Our money changes, and so we have to have a community discussion about what happens. And we also created the event to invite a number of other activists and political advocacy organizations to table with our community, because our intention was that if we're all in the fight together, we need to be connected and direct people into how to do the work to support each other. We received feedback that people were deeply, deeply moved by the performance and energized by seeing the athletics and also getting to connect with the other organizations. We had a lot of people in our audience whose organizations were in a similar place. So it felt like the match was we were doing our work. Financially, we didn't hit our goals. And part of that was because we had set goals based on previous in-person fundraising events with the hope of having sponsors, but we have not held an in-person fundraising event in many years because of COVID. And we thought we could renew some of the relationships of bigger donors, and that didn't happen. We had a lot of smaller individual donations, and that's the reality of our organization. We have people who are very generous and give as they are able. And perhaps a more substantial donation from somebody who wanted to support our special guest, who is a Broadway theater director, who is a member of our community, who was once one of our staff members. But that just highlighted to me that there are some dynamics that we are navigating, that access to bigger donations relies on an individual's relationship with people who have wealth, and or people who have celebrity, and that's what attracts new donors in. So those are some of the things we're processing. It's like, how can we continue to stay true to doing the work that we do and understand our position and our access in the landscape of who has money.
Oh, thank you so much. Just like from our HE perspective, even when we launched our Friends scheme, there's a lot of conversation about, a lot of our communities have, had to go reduce in their hours, and they're freelancers, when they come forward. And often we found most people who don't have the much were the first person who are trying to give us more. And yeah, it does beg a question about, a lot of what's happening. But I appreciate you. Thank you so much, Sulu. If I bring in Americo, can you hear me? You were saying earlier about a lot of your publication relies on funding from. Alex, can you hear me? Have I lost? Yeah. Oh, perfect.
Yes, I can. Yes, I can. The thing is that I'm on the other channel. Sorry.
I'm with you. Thank you. My question, Alex, is to Americo. Is that he was saying earlier how he has funding from Alliance, and that funding support the publication and how he runs the organization. I guess I'm curious to know, how does maintaining this relationship with the funders has been, and what does it take?
Sí. Estaba escuchando a Zulu con el teatro, que es nuestro gran desafío para el 25, mediante el mecenazgo, que aquí esto es estatal, podríamos lograr tener nuestro teatro. Y son las mismas palabras de Zulu las que nos alimentan a poder hacerlo.
Un segundo, Américo, ¿podrías por favor poner el celular en silencio o apartarlo un poco?
A ver, ¿puedo?
Sí. Sí, ponerlo en mute, el celular, para que no haya el... ¿Ya? Okay, perfect. So basically what America was saying is that theater, I mean, he's very close to theater, and like Zulu, he understands completely the situation, but the theater for him has been challenging, and is going to be a bigger challenge for 2025, because now they are talking about a state level, and they have to work harder to be able and get some more funding in that respect. Américo, continúa, por favor.
No tuve la traducción en español recién.
Estaba traduciendo lo que vos dijiste anteriormente.
Ah, ok, perfecto. Después, quisiera agregar, más allá de la financiación, de lograr o no lograr, no es impedimento para nosotros la financiación. Absolutamente no. Hemos logrado...
I would like to add that obviously depending on whether we have the funding or not, that it's not an obstacle for us, because either if we have it or not, we will do our utmost to be able and carry on with the work that we are doing at the moment. Américo, continúa.
Sí, queriendo decir con esto que no siempre esperamos mucho, porque nos lleva mucho trabajo el poder ir atrás de esta financiación. Todavía somos en la organización muy pocos, entonces nos abocamos y nuestra paga, nuestro tesoro es poder trabajar con ellos en esto de la inclusión. Aparte, nosotros hemos tenido una herramienta fundamental para entenderlos con la gente de calle es una muy buena herramienta que hemos logrado sostener hace más de 15 años con esta intensidad.
Okay, so one of the things that we keep saying is that we don't really expect much, because I know that, or we know here, that it's very difficult, that we have to be chasing these organizations to give us funding. Apart from that, we are not many here in our organization, so it's a lot of time consuming as well. So basically what we try to do is to do our best with what we get, but also we are focusing on what is, if we want, like our crown jewel, our treasure, which is inclusion. That is the key thing for us. Inclusion is something that we've been doing for the past 15 years. Inclusion of the people who are homeless and the community of homeless people here in Buenos Aires. Américo.
Igualmente siempre es mucho más agradable trabajar con materiales nobles que no estar también siempre jugando con los mismos elementos de la calle.
And sometimes it's always good and better to have good materials or better materials to produce better things as well, so that we don't keep repeating the same kind of work, and we have a little bit more of liberty to freedom to have a better art, basically.
Y vamos mucho más allá de la obra de arte o el mero hecho de estar trabajando en algo concentrado. Buscamos que cada uno de ellos descubra en el hacer de la obra, ese es lo que ganan. Lo demás corre por otros carriles, sabiendo que estamos en el museo y cotizamos ahora, el colectivo cotiza como cotizan los profesionales en el arte acá en Argentina.
And one of the things that we also take into account is that we are beyond just the art form and all the art that we create. We tried to make possible for these people, for our people, to have something better in life. And besides, nowadays we are within the museum, and some of our artists are earning a living, if we will, from that. But we want to make it all about them and take it beyond.
Thank you so much.
Muchas gracias, Américo. Américo, ¿podés por favor cerrar este micrófono y volver al celular para escuchar la traducción?
Thank you so much. Thank you. I think one of the things that we've been hearing throughout the last 3 days is we've heard from organizations based both in Argentina and in Lebanon and Palestine, and I think the message they've been echoing over the last 3 days is like, despite difficult political climate or despite the war or crisis, they will do, with funding or without, they will do their utmost to continue supporting the people they support, and they will always find a solution. And I think that's to do with a lot of the often people who work in our organization and charity and NGOs. There is a kind of cross-section between activism and the correct ethos in being in this organization to support the people, the community. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you. If I bring in Daniel before I come back to you, Rajesh. Yeah, you've heard any response to things that you've heard? Anything that's coming for you? Innovative ideas to sustain your program for this year? Or how does 2025 look for you? I know, like organization fundraising strategies, and there's always hope. If you really want to be transparent here, and we welcome you to be transparent, what's your target looking like for this year, and how hopeful are you to meet it?
Can I backtrack slightly?
Of course you can.
That's okay. So
Yeah.
I will come back to that. But in terms of doing the work, regardless of whether there's money for it or not, it's something that I feel really torn about, and I fully am behind the impact of the work, and therefore it should be done regardless. And I was saying, we were kind of doing it on the side regardless, and so I can't say we're not doing that. But I do really feel like we, as a sector, in this economic society, the work that we do we don't always make the case well enough that in a situation where it's being devalued all around us, that we're contributing to its devaluation as well. And like, take like regardless of homelessness, like part of sort of like Tory view of art, like artists will make their artwork regardless, whether it's funded by the state or somebody would, like those that really matter will make it regardless, and the charities will foot the bill. But there's one of the other terms for the charity sector is the voluntary and community sector, VCS. That's one that like we're involved in local community centre networks and community organisation networks as well as the arts networks, and that's been really successful for us. That's how we have well, for us to be able to align ourselves with those networks and the communities that those organisations support is how we can run great participatory programmes that are arts based. But I hate the V. Like, it shouldn't be voluntary. It should be legitimately paid for. And some of my peers in those networks like always use the term VCS, and I really try to avoid it. So in terms of the year ahead, well, our earned income is slightly down, and that can like that's quite a large amount of money, and like a bad couple of months on that can really make a big difference. That the funding can't actually top up. Like the time it takes to earn funding is way longer than time it takes us to earn some money from the studios, and that is a worry that I get used to living with.
It's stressful.
It's the anybody running a small, like we all get used to living with a worry. You guys are living with worries, and that also is not healthy for any of us.
No,
and nor is doing it for free healthy for any of us.
I know you can't see, but I have so many grey hair. It's been stressful. It's been stressful. You know, we've seen our peers like go from full time to part time, and then trying to manipulate even the hours. Oh, can I go in 2 days and a half? And that's not where we want to be. And we're a really big believer at AHI. Like, we have to pay people fairly for their time, and that put more resources in there. And I think what we meant by like continuing project with or without funding is like we will find a way, and I think that's hopefully what I'm taking away today. But if I can bring you Vijesh, I know you touched on briefly about your calendar, and you're showing us some example of it, but I'm really keen to understand in terms of like funding wise from the generated from that innovative idea, and how has it been there to sustain your organization. And maybe just final remarks to wrap up the conversation as well. Thank you.
Yeah, to summarize this question answered by the Sarthak. Sarthak is there. Sarthak, can you answer the questions?
Yes, of
Mumbai
course.
calendar India. All process Sampadas. Yeah.
Yes, again, I hope I'm audible. So the My Mumbai calendar process started out with the vision that the generated funds would eventually go back to the community in itself. We did eventually, to start off, we did hit a lot of roadblocks, starting from the customs process. We needed to have funding for the cameras in the first place. The reason also we decided to do a photo voice was because a lot of the community members had shown an interest in photography, something which was still something alien to them, because we use phones, we use photography, which is quite natural to us. For them, it was still a dream. So that is how we decided to go into this process in the first place. But we had to deal with the customs, the issue of buying portable cameras, and then the logistics of all of that goes behind the scenes. Now, when we have actually printed and made the calendar in itself, let's just say as an example, we have made 1,000 copies of our calendar, and we are selling them about £10 per calendar in the UK price. We have, as of right now, we have sold about half of those calendars, and the generated profit is yet, so we have not yet been able to break through. Our vision was that by selling at least half of these calendars, and by this point we would have broken through. That is yet to come. So now we have then started engaging and started giving the calendars directly to the homeless communities themselves. In India, homelessness also looks quite different. We have such a large number of homeless communities and the situation is so dire. But when you would see a homeless community selling a My Mumbai calendar, something that is so fancy and is not associated to them right at the roadside, people have taken kind of an interest to them buying the calendars directly from them at the side of the road rather than to buy the calendars from our website or from an online links, which we had not anticipated before we had done this. So with the My Mumbai calendar project right now, we hope to break through. This has been our second year of doing this calendar. Last year we were at a loss. This year we are looking at a breakthrough. Eventually next year we hope that we gain, get some profit that comes to the organization as well, because we have put our own money into the logistics, into the printing, finances of things. So eventually you start to think if such creative projects, instead of being a vision for the future, they should not hold you back down. That is something Brijesh and I constantly talking about. That these are the processes that keep you engaged, and it is important to keep being engaged even if you face losses, because eventually you will work across, build a community, build a name for yourself, your organization and the work that you're doing. And you won't find necessarily quick success. It's been 2 years now, hoping to replicate future success next year as well. That goes for the calendars. We also have another creative project where we have a doll making, where we ourselves, Pehchan ourselves, provides the raw materials to the homeless communities to do the doll making. Now, in a way, we have tried to, yes, as Brijesh was showing on camera, yeah, there we go. So we have tried to make this a process which is self-sustainable, which is another factor we will hear when it is so important to self-sustain the projects, especially the creative projects. So we have tried to make this self-sustainable, in which the homeless communities, let's say at first there were 5 women who learned, crafting and sewing. They then taught this art to another 15 women. So then exponentially, multiple people started to learn a skill that was not just limited to making dolls, but the skill of sewing was far more important, because they can do professional sewing, professional tailoring, etc. So eventually this process, this doll making process, has now sort of become self-sustainable. Of course, there are barriers here and there. But this project that started off with, giving resources from our end, eventually then became people learning sewing themselves, then being able to sell it themselves, being able to buy the raw material themselves, and then the cycle continues. In that sense, we have been able to try it and make it self-sustainable. So this is another creative project of ours. In the end, Brijesh sir, कुछ खत्म करने के लिए आप कुछ 2-3 शब्द बता दीजिए.
हाँ, तो 2-3 चीजें थी जो हम लोग कर सकते हैं. एक तो हम एज ए आर्ट एंड होमलेसनेस ग्रुप कोई हम ज्वाइंटली फंड रेज कर सकते हैं. लास्ट ईयर हमने ग्लोबल साउथ एक इवेंट किया था, पोस्ट कार्ड सेट वाला, सिमिलर टाइप कुछ उस तरीके से कुछ हम एक्सचेंज प्रोग्राम कर सकते हैं ज्वाइंटली. और उसके लिए हम कलेक्टिवली जो है ये जो हमारा आर्ट एंड होमलेसनेस का जो ग्रुप है, उसके थ्रू हम इन सारी चीज़ों को आगे लेके जा सकते हैं. तो एक यूनिवर्सल जब काम आएगा तो उसका एक जो इम्पैक्ट होता है वो बहुत ही बड़ा रहता है. और हम सब अपने अपने कंट्री में जो है फंडिंग का प्रॉब्लम फेस कर रहे हैं. इंडिया में करंट सिचुएशन ऐसा हुआ है कि फंड अवेलेबल है, बट जो बिग ऑर्गेनाइजेशन है, जैसे बिग कंपनीज हैं, उनके खुद के ही जो है CSR या फाउंडेशन या चैरिटी रजिस्टर्ड करके वो सारा खर्च वहाँ पे कर रहा है, या वो पॉलिटिकल पार्टीज को जो है डोनेट कर रहे हैं. तो उनसे बाहर निकलते हुए हम ज्वाइंटली कैसे हम काम को कर सकते हैं ताकि हम अपने काम को और बेहतर कर सकें. लास्ट पॉइंट ये था कि टीम एक बार बनने के बाद में जब हमारा स्टाफ आता है, टीम आता है, फिर उसको फंडिंग की वजह से उनको हटाना और फिर निकालना, फिर टीम बनाना, वो बहुत एक डिफिकल्ट टास्क है. तो टीम अगर हमारे पास में अच्छी रहेगी तब जाके हम बेटर काम कर सकते हैं. ठीक है.
Thank you.
So the final few closing thoughts from Brijesh and Pehchan here. Looking at something collective, So looking at something collective with arts and homelessness, this multi-group NGO and this think tank of people that we have here coming together to discuss, because we all have our individual or organizational challenges in our own countries. So something bigger than because collectively we have a lot more power. Individually we may not, but collectively we have a lot more power. And this entire event, this forum has been a testament to that very fact. So something looking at a brighter, more bigger universal scale. Secondly, when it comes to specifically in the Indian context, companies and CSR, because India is a growing economy, the 5th largest economy currently, so people have money. Companies here have money, but because of the rampant corruption, another way to fuel this money is that bigger corporations have their own CSR organizations. So let's say organization A has a mini organization AB. So that is how they carry out their CSR and then guide all that excess funds which is required and mandated by the government to be used for charity and groundwork initiatives. A very final closing out that I think we can all share and agree with is that once you have a team, a core group of team that you build over a years or a few months, and there's that trust and there's that thrive that happens because of a lack of funding. You have to sometimes, you come at this point where you don't really know what to do, and to reduce and to sort of cut your losses, you might have to take the drastic steps of reducing your team. This very team that has been built on trust and motivation because they want to do this, help with this cause, they have come here, and to make this difficult decision as to they need their salaries, we need to pay them for the important and crucial work that they're doing. Sure, a lot of them will take pay losses and pay cuts, but for how long and how much? And to go from a big team to a small team or an already small team to taking a lot of workload on yourself personally because you want to keep on thriving is something that is not sustainable for the long run. So it's the harsh reality, and we are all living through it in our own different kinds, but
thank you so much.
Hoping that this value is recognized and the importance of the organization, thriving together, building forward, will then eventually lead to much more creative ideas coming into
Brilliant.
it. So,
Absolutely.
thank you so much.
Thank you so much for your translation.
one line, just one line. Yeah. सार्थक, हमने जो एक इवेंट किया था आर्ट एक्सचेंज का, अगर हम कुछ अलग अलग लोग अपने आर्ट को एक्सचेंज कर सकते हैं, अपने काम को एक्सचेंज कर सकते हैं, और चाहे तो एक्सपीरियंस को एक्सचेंज कर सकते हैं, तो कहीं ना कहीं हम आगे चल के और भी अच्छा फंडरेज कर सकते हैं, लेकिन कलेक्टिवली अगर करेंगे तो इंडिविजुअली करके कुछ होगा.
So again, individually when, so last year we are trying, an art exchange program where people who are expertised in, their own unique art forms came together and shared, what they had learned, how they had learned. This is also when we had gotten the idea of teaching other women sewing. So you see how this process had then evolved. But eventually what we realized was also important is, people coming together for the same cause, having that mindset. Because individually you would attract maybe so much of a crowd. But if you're able to attract like-minded people who come together for a cause, as important as homelessness, the issue that we're working on, or any issue as such, it then gives a drive to that cause, which will then automatically involve people spending or giving a penny in form of donation, funds, etc.
Thank you so much. Thank you. That's a really good way to wrap this conversation here. If I can invite all the speakers in the chat, because I would have loved to hear your thoughts on an advice to give our communities and our people who work in this sector, in the intersectionality between arts and homelessness. What advice you would like to give them for this year ahead in terms of funding? If you just put that in the chat, and then we'll collate it and circulate it in our notes. But I'd like to thank each one of you for your contribution here today. Please give it up for Sulu. Thank you so much. For Daniel. Thank you, Bajesh. Thank you so much. And the translator, thank you so much for all your translation today. And America, all the way from Argentina, and our translators, Alex and Jan. Thank you so much. And if you just give... Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you all for really staying. If I can just quickly read out Mark's remarks, and that he sent through he set up his apology, but I think he wanted you all to understand something about a platform called Patreon. I'm just going to read it out as it is. I hope it makes sense. But this is the notes he wrote. Patreon is a platform. A platform by itself can't help raise money. It can't help you raise money, but YouTube has a membership. Twitter, or X, has subscribers. All the platforms have some kind of a membership where people can feel exclusive. The extremely hard part is that you have to create exclusive content for your members on a regular basis. This is the content that separates you from what you are producing otherwise. As we saw with TikTok go in the dark this week, email. I mean by that, build your email list. Those are your super friends, and those are the ones that are going to support you the most. If the non-profits can create exclusive content for Patreon, you could grow supporters too. In fundraising, we call it premiums. People want something. For that monthly donation that you're gonna want something in return that makes them feel exclusive. For me, it's really hard to create that extra content every month. Patreon is not magic. All fundraising takes hard work and dedication. The key thing is to make the donor the hero. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for your time, and please stay with us for the next panel on academic research and arts and homelessness. Thank you.